Good morning, Chavra. Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning. All right. Itching to start. Another 30 seconds until the 5:30 mark. Okay, Danny's here. We're good. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 prakim Rambam, Hilchos Ishus, prakim Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, and Yud Tes. We are beginning with Perek Yud Zayin. Perek Yud Zayin will begin telling us the formula of how the ksuba should be paid when a man married various wives and he passed away. And as we'll see, there will be times that there will not be enough money in his estate to cover all of the ksubas of all of the wives. How does the laws of precedent take place? What happens if every wife has another number on the ksuba, even when there's no din kedima? We're going to be learning about an arev or an arev kablan when it comes to his obligation by a ksuba, and many cases where you have a wife, a almana, selling her ksuba and their consequences. Let's begin. Perek Yud Zayin has 19 halachas, beginning with Perek Aleph, says the Rambam. A man is married to many wives, and the husband passes away. So first of all, the rule is, whoever's ksuba has a date that precedes their tzara. Just the word tzara is used when you have a co-wife. So, like any other chayv, which taka could be collected and not before the takanas hagoinim, as we learned yesterday, ksuba from an almana is only collected from the karka. Okay, so which chayv comes first? The ones whose date came first. The ein achas mehem, they tell us ela b'shvua. Now, guys, we keep on repeating the shvua, but remember, it's good to chazed many times. What we call the shvuas ha'almana. She swears that her husband, prior to passing away, did not leave for her something specific from which she should collect her ksuba. And then also, she swears that she was not meichel her ksuba. And when it comes to dinei mechila, almost always you need to make a kinyan, not for mechila, not only by a marriage, but any monetary, that if I owe you money, if I owe and you're meichel to me, as long as you don't deny it, I don't even need to have Adam. I don't have to have a kinyan. So that's called Shuas Almana. So that has to be made. And in other words, if the guy doesn't have enough in his estate, the first one that collects takes all of her ksuba. That chayv came first. The gamhi, and even the last one swears, and she only is then able to take the rest. Now, why does the last one have to swear? We're not only speaking about the Shuas Almana, but it could be that after the first one collects, we'll discover that the husband had another chayv, which predated even the first or even the second. So the Baal Chayv is going to be toirev, let's say, from the first wife. The first wife ultimately might have the right to collect it from this last wife. That will be the only thing left. The last wife might know about it. She might not properly take care of the land. So there is something that the last wife is potentially taking away from the other wife. So even the last one not only has to swear that she didn't receive anything from the husband, that she was not meichel, but she has to swear for the other wives. If there was also a promissory note against the husband's estate, same thing, like the ksuba. If the date of the chayv predated even the first ksuba, in other words, guys, that's the general rule when it comes to collecting the ksuba. You have more than one wife, like any other chayv. Which date comes first? Halacha beis. That's only true if when the husband got into debt, either because he borrowed money or because he married, he already then owned real estate. So then the chayv became a shubit to the real estate. And then if tomorrow he got married again, so the new chayv again became lien to the real estate. That is where we say, well, the the chayv that came first was leaned first, will be collected first, because he already had the karka then. What happens if a man marries many wives, one after the other, or the law of a ben and he also borrowed money? That means he undertook many debts, but during the time of his undertaking of the debts, he owned 0 land. After he's married those 4 wives, mitamol, he buys land. That means that when he bought the land, at that time, he was already meshubed to all of his wives, even though he married one before the other. The din then will be that the land is equally linked to all of the debts. And then they all have equal claim, because when he bought that land, already and therefore the ein kan din kedima. I want you to know, Bachlal, if we'll learn that explicitly later, in such a case where there's no din kedima, if he has a piece of real estate and it's only enough to cover the debt of someone who loaned him money, or various people who loaned him money, the woman, the almana, will get nothing, because the almana in marriage, the woman is not bringing in the money of the iked and the tosfos ksuba. Unlike someone who lent the money, they went out of pocket. But if they were, we're going to get to those stratum later. But first thing that Rambam begins today's Pedic, there's a din kedima. But if after he undertook all the marriages, then he owned land, then he bought land, so then there's no din kedima. Halacha 3, V'chein im hoya zman aksubas v'ashtoris kol yom echad. A man busy, he married many wives on the same date, and on the same date he borrowed money. Now there are certain places that not only did they write the date as we do on a star, including on a star ksuba, they even wrote the hour because of the din kedima. Okay, they were all in the same hour. Again, so then even if he already owned land, doesn't matter, but he undertook the chayv at the same time. Now we did learn yesterday that that a woman can collect her ksuba from movables. So let's think about it. The man owes many wives to ksuba. His estate owes. He doesn't have any land. They can collect it from a taltalin. There, we don't even care which ksuba came first. There is no din kedima. However, if there isn't enough for all, and how do you make the division? We'll learn soon the formula. One wife chapped all of the metaltalin, not more than her ksuba, the value of her ksuba, or one bal chayv chapped. So there's another rule. Once someone took possession of, they get to keep it. There is no din kedima b'metaltalin. Al pi Chasidus, the Rebbe has a beautiful concept that the din kedima beruchnius is the yetzer hara actimate hanase, because we're born with the yetzer hara, the yetzer toiv, you only get by bar mitzvah properly. If a yid lives life where his gashmistic things are not that important, they're not like karkedola, like metaltalin, then the yetzer hara loses its din kedima. Okay, halacha dal. Both came to collect. We just spoke this out by heart. Now, first case is he has enough to cover. But interestingly, from his metaltalin, you can cover the debt. From his land, you can cover the ksuba. That's the ideal way of doing it. Guys, you know why? How does he owe money? Because the guy loaned him money. So if someone lends you money, what do you give back? Ideally, give back the same that you received. Give back money. Because she did not give any money. Now, in the case, not of halacha aleph, but of halacha beis, so there isn't enough for both. If it's not between two almanas, it's between a lender and an almana. There, and only if then she'll take. But what's the logic? The lender loaned him money. He went out of pocket. She did not lend her husband money. She married him. You can argue she did him a big favor. Okay, but also he did her a favor by marrying her. Because of this concept, Masha ish roitza lisha, isha roitza lihi nasei. Right in Aramish, tan lemet of tandum lemes of armel. Now halacha chem yishameis v'yiniach isha ubal choiv v'karka she'elo din kedima ho isha nitcheis pnei bal choiv v'hu goyve kol choyvoi tchila. Halacha vav. The kiva shetiknu hagoyim, as we learned yesterday, shetigava isha ubal choiv and amataltalin, and it's already known she'ein din kedima metaltalin. Im loy hiniach metaltalin kedei litin l'shneihem. Same logic. Noisnin lebal choiv kol choyvoi tchila, and only the initial isha mashatitel b'ksuvas atitel oitidachem. Okay. Next, halacha zay. Now, atkan is when it comes to the obligation, my friends, of what we call the ikar ksuba, including the tosefes. Now, let's move on. We learned about Ladunya yesterday. I mean, she brings in property. There's nichse meloy, the property mamish belongs to her. It doesn't belong to him. Elama, during the marriage, he gets to use it. Nechse tzoim barzel means that she gave it to him. His estate must guarantee its value as it was when they get married. So halacha zayin hoiksuvim b'ksuvas nichsesim barzel and v'to anosha of the way. Where is it? It's not now in her possession. She wants to collect it. Harei he nichsesim barzel shelo k'shar mal chayvis nichsesim barzel. Unlike the ksuba, she brought it into him. So she must get it back. Now, guys, I know that if the real estate now is worth a little bit more, she won't get all of it back. She'll only get the value as it was when she got married. But that, she's like a balchayv. And therefore, she won't be pushed away. She'll be like two balchayvs with all of the laws of which one came first in Kedima. If they didn't get first, then you will see the formula, what you do. V'nishbas, shaloi lakcha oisam, which is the shua salmana, v'loi nasna, v'loi machala, and then the chaylekes in bal chayv. In other words, by a tzoim barzel is viewed like any other chayv. Next, halacha ches. Mishameis oigeirish yesh le'nashom nabois, and in the case the ein sham din kedima and the ein loikedei kolak subois. That's what we're getting to. So the question is, keitzad cholkois. Guys, we had this in ksubas, right? Where was it? Tzadigimel somewhere. Where machloikes between Rabbi and Abnasim. And we're going to learn the formula of Rabbi. So Paskins the Rambam. So let's go. So first of all, like this, Royim. Im kishayechalik hamamin iminyan hanoshim. Yagia lapsucha shebehem kedei ksuba oy pachois cholkois bishavim. So first of all of what the husband owns is lean towards all the ksubas. Don't forget, we're speaking about halacha ches onwards, where there is no din kedima. The Rambam is going to give numbers, okay? But if the division will be in a way where everyone the one who has the minimum number will receive her share, then you start with that. I can just say it out by heart. So let's say to one woman he owes 800, to the next woman 600, to the next woman 400, and to the last one 200. It's 4 wives. The Rambam is going to give other numbers. But if when he passed away, he left, let's say, $800, dividing it by 4, each one gets 200. The first division you make is a number that a chelik that will cover the ksuba of the one to whom he owns the minimum. Okay. If he passed away and he left even more money, then then you make another division. The first one was bought out. You divide it in a way where the one who now has the lowest number, if you divide it equally, if there is enough for it to cover her number as well, you make that division. And without giving numbers, you're not going to chop it. So, okay, guys, this is the formula of Rabbi. I'm sorry, I gave the wrong numbers. Here, let's go to the example of the Rambam. It's the same idea. The first one, he was excited, and he gave her a ksuba of 400. I'm just giving you an example. The ikik ksuba, guys, let's say she was a psula, and he added 200. Or she was a ba'ula, so ba'ula, he's chayv, the ikir is 100, and then he added another 3. The bottom line is that between the ikir and the toisves here, we put it together, he owes her 400. He married a second one. Her total was 300. The third one was 200, and the fourth one was 100. 4, 3, 2, 1. The nimtza hakoil elef. That's a great example. Now, if you were to divide 1,000, my friends, into 4, that's what you don't do. because then every chelik would be 250. Yeah, you're kidding. That's more than he owes to the fourth one. It's more than he owes to the third one. In other words, you're looking to begin with a number that when you divide it into this case 4, one chelik will cover the lowest one. Means the first thing you do is you take out of the 1,000 that he left, you remove 400. You divide that 400 into 4. Why is that? Because like this, at least the fourth wife to whom he owns 100 is covered. I know that everyone else got the same share. It's not fair yet because he gave their bigger ksubas, but you still have 600 zuzlas, and then we'll see how you do that again. Nimsa hakoil elef, the gatish kol my mace. Like this. If all he left was 400 or less than 400, even though one wife was promised a higher number, ainly a hatnisht. You begin and you divide 400 or less equally, and therefore, let's go in the case where he left 400, everyone takes 100 or less. And therefore, everyone, at least the lowest one, got 100. And what's amazing again will be, is that you don't do it proportionally. You don't say, okay, look at the percent of what he left to the first was 400 times more than the fourth. So let the fourth receive 400% less. We don't say that. Now, let's go to another number. He left 800. Now, if you're going to divide 800 into 4, what's the division? It's 200 each. So then it's taka good as far as the second, the third, the second, and the first, at least. But it's going to be too much for the fourth. Which is wrong because the fourth ksuba is only 100. So if you have 800, what do? First, you take out of the 800, you take 400. You understand why did you begin with 400? Because you know there are 4 wives. You know that the least amount owed to the fourth wife in our example is 100. So you begin with the number that if you divide it shava b'shava, you will cover completely the lowest ksuba. The nim says so if not the case of asa, and and shalom. Not what do you have left? You have 400 left. Well, guys, let's think out by heart. If you take 400 and you divide it by 3, 400 by 3 is 133. Don't forget the third wife to whom he promised 200. If you're gonna do that, she's gonna get also more than her share because she already got 100. All you need to do is to give her another 100. You have 3 wives left. So what do? From the 400 left, same for you take out 300, divide those 300 now into 3 because the fourth wife is shalom, goodbye. So now you cover the second wife. Even though still the lowest, the third, and the second and the first only all got equal, but there's still some money left. Let's keep it going. Now, like we said, if you're going to divide the 400 for all of the 3 remainers, then the third wife to whom was promised 200, she's going to end up now with 133. With the prior 100, that's 233. And so you remove from the 400 left 300. You divide it equally. Now so now at least the third wife got her 200. So now what do you have left? You have 2 wives left. Now again, even though that to the first wife there was 400 promised, to the second wife only 300. We don't do that proportionally. Now there's 2 wives left. It doesn't cover. It won't cover even the minimum of the second wife to whom he owes 300. So if there's that amount or less, you divide it equally. You take the final 100, you divide it into 2. So it comes out at the end. The Yad Hashniya also the same amount, 250. The first one was promised 400 and the second one 300. That is Shitas Rebbe, not like Rav Nosson. It's not proportional. The Nim says B'yad Shlishi is the whole thing that she was promised 200, and the fourth one will get 100. I want you to know this is not Ruach HaKodesh because there are many dim Torah like this. This is not only when it comes to almanis. In other words, if you have 4 bal chayvos and there's no din kedima, so how do you divide their chalukah? So this is a gavaldika type of formula. Okay, halacha test. Now we're moving on to a new topic. Dinei arvus. Dinei arvus, also interestingly, is something that you can word it in a way that an arv doesn't have to make a kinyan. Some people word it that the kinyan made in any document is the kinyan for the arv. Arav, like Mechila, for sure doesn't need a kinyan. Some people worded that an Arav means that two people are making a deal in between them. One of them is hesitating, and one person steps in, a third party who's not getting anything, but he's guaranteeing a responsibility from a certain side. And here we're going to learn that since Asmachta Loikanya, even if someone was ma'ariv, the money of the ksuba, means a man is getting married, the woman's hesitation is that if God forbid she'll get divorced, or if she's going to have to collect from the state money, she's not going to get it. She's afraid she won't get her ksuba, and therefore she doesn't want to get married. So it comes any third person, and he says, if it comes to that, I'll pay for your ksuba. Chazal said that that person never really meant it. He only wanted them to get married. Don't forget, based again on the fact that she did not lend money, she did not give money. So B'chlal, it's viewed, it's not like she's getting back what she put in there. No, the Chazal said, he's mechuyev to pay her the ksuba. He was never really mischayev himself, and therefore, ha'arav le'isha b'ksuba, af al pi, even if the ha'arav made a kinyan, eina chayev l'shalom. Means, let's say she gets divorced or he passes away, she's coming to collect, guys, the estate is chayev to pay. But let's give our case. He died the pauper. Not karka, not metaltalin, or there was a balchoyev, the kedima. She's not getting her ksuba. She's going to the ha'arav. The ha'arav doesn't have to pay. Why? Because he never meant it. However, there's two exceptions. Exception number one is if the father guaranteed the ksuba of his son and he made a kinyan, a father is really mishabed himself. That's a psychological thing. God, thank God that parents feel that way for the children. They're machayev themselves for the children. Exception number two is, and we have to learn more dinei arvos, that there's something called an arav kabbalah. An arav means that you have to go back to the person, the principal. If the principal defaults, then you get to go to the guarantor. Arav kabbalah means that guy who's stepping in says, if you want, you can come to me lachatchila. It's a higher level of responsibility. It says, v'kabbalah shel ksuba, yes, chayev l'shalem. And even if they didn't make a kinyan. In other words, a kinyan doesn't make a difference. The only time a kinyan makes a difference in here is if the father was ma'arav with a kinyan. What's called a kabbalah? Zesha amala isha. Don't worry, you can marry him, and I will give you the ksuba. I will give you implies if you want, you can come to me lachatchila. But if he uses the words ani arev means you have to go to your husband or to his estate. Only if he defaults, then can you come to me, or I'm going to pay your ksuba. These are all words of arabus and not of kablanos. Another case, right? The guy is divorcing his wife in a case where there is an arav, or arav means a kabbalin or the father. You know what we are afraid? I'll tell you what we are afraid. We are afraid if the husband is not a kohen, you can divorce your wife and you can remarry her. If someone else has to pay the ksuba, there's always a fear that they made a kenunya. The whole get is just a medium to get the money out of the arav. So therefore, he must take a vow that is going to bind her, prohibiting her to later have any benefit from him, which will include she cannot marry him, and only then can you get the ksuba payment from the kabbalah or from the father if the father was an arav with the king, because maybe and this type of fear is also applied to one other case. This and then he divorces his wife. And what's amazing is that even though the man married his wife before he was magdish all of his nechasim, and he has real estate, nevertheless there is a rule that hegdish is mafkia hashibud from the wife. So which means that if he divorces her, she cannot collect anything. But 1 second, if someone redeemed that property from Hegdashuki, it's mafkia, it not really in the root. If someone later redeemed that property from Hegdash, as long as she can prove from her document that she was married prior to her ex-husband being magdashit, she'll collect it. So here again, maybe the whole reason he's giving her a divorce, he regrets that he was magdashit. Finally, someone redeemed something. Let me get that back. However, the man divorces his wife, and she is coming to collect it from the lakuchais. So then we can say the same thing. maybe the whole reason he divorced his wife is because he wants to get that land back. No, so it says, Ein mechayvin oisel hadira, ella nishbas. She just has to swear. What does she have to swear? Like she always has to swear that she never got the ksuba yet. And v'toirefes. Now, ve'im ratzasa, if she then desires, she's allowed to get remarried. Maybe the whole thing was a kanunya. Taka, maybe the whole thing was, the answer is that whenever you buy land from a married man whom you know is married to a woman, you know that you're putting yourself up to the possibility that there'll be a divorce or he's going to die and you're going to lose that property.
You can go back to the husband and Tovea.
Well, that's true, but I'm saying you don't want to go through that headache. It's not because of that. It's because you knew that lachatchila. You were not tricked. Halacha Yudalev. If a husband sells his property, and after he sold this property, now what did we just learn? That after, if there'll be a divorce, the wife can collect it from the lekuchas. She went ahead and she wrote to this guy, Din udvarim ein li imach. I am committing that I will never come and take the property away from you. If it comes, that means if I'll get divorced, if I'll become a widow, I'm reneging any rights I have to the property that you bought. They scheme along myself. Even though a kinyan was made, her agreement is worthless. Here also we say she did not mean it. Why? Because you know why she made that declaration? Because she wanted to do a nachas ruach to her husband. Was the husband was told her she should do it, and she acquiesced. She can say, I only did it. Right? That first the husband sold the property. And then she went ahead and she made that statement. But if prior to the sale, she first made that commitment, and then in other words, the fact that she made a kinyan prior to the sale weakens her. It's not that everything the husband is going to want, she's going to do. Here, there was already less pressure. If the husband sold it and he told to his wife to write it on lekeach, and she didn't write it, then she already showed once that she will not agree to it, and even though it meant the sale was lost. So she already showed that she's not the type of wife that I'm going to make to my husband giving up my ksuba. And then at another time, to another man, to the same man, she did make such a statement. Or to another person, this field or another field. And because in other words, if she, going back to the beginning of this halacha, if she makes that statement during the sale, that is where we say, that is where she can say nachas ruach hasisi l'bayli. If she made that statement prior to any sale, she cannot say nachas ruach hasisi l'bayli. Gaval halacha yud beis. Mish oyelo shnei nashim. Man is married to two wives. As we just learned, after the sale, they made that agreement. She cannot then collect it from the purchaser. And then it was in a case where, as we learned in Allah Yadalaf, she cannot say nachas ruach, and she told one person, I'm not going to collect it. That means she abnegated her right to collect it from the likeach, and then the husband passes away, right? Or he divorces both of them. So the first one cannot collect it, but the second one can collect it, right? Because the second one made no such an agreement. Now hold on a second. Whose chayv came first? How did we begin today's Perek? That if a man is married to two wives, first look at the date of the document. All she did was, she says, Dinu Devarim, I'm not going to take it from you, the Lekeach. She never said, I'm not going to take it from my co-wife. So even though she won't collect it, the second one will collect it. But now the first one can tell the second one, whoa, 1 second. If there's no other estate to collect my ksuba other than what you have, from you I can collect. The Pnei Shehi Kadma, the Loihisira Shibuda, she made this declaration, I'm not going to come collect it from the guy who purchased it. So the first one is going to take it. But hold on, when the first one takes it, who's going to come now to the scene? The Lekeach. The Lekeach tells the first one, you have my land. You committed to me, you're not going to collect it. So the Lekeach takes it out of the first wife. Comes the second wife, she takes it out of the Lekeach. So they're going to be going in circles. So now you have three parties, and they have to.
Why does the Lekeach here? He already lost it to the second.
Because the Lekeach, the only land, like the Shuki says, just because the Lekeach lost his land, he wants his money back, he wants another property back. The husband has nothing other than this. So the husband can. You understand?
When he bought the land, he realized it was considered to the other wife, right?
Yeah, but only one wife said Dino Devon. In the case where her words are valid, he bought it. So now the first one cannot collect it from him. So anytime the land ends up on the property of the first, he takes it back from her. The moment it's in her, comes the second wife, and the second wife tells the Lekeach, excuse me, I got married before my husband sold you the property. And these three parties, only if they're completely wired crazy, will they allow for this? They'll have to come to an agreement. However they'll agree. Normally, everyone will get a third.
It wasn't too wide. If the Lekeach gave it to another guy, he sold it. Now the first wife had a deal not to take it from him.
She collects it. Yes.
Dinu
Dvarim ein loch doesn't mean I'm giving up my debt. She didn't give up her ksuba. She didn't even give up the shiva to the karka. She said that I'm not going to collect it from you. That's the word. Halacha Yud Gimel. Vayter Chavanu a almana. And this is whether she was already married or whether there was only a halachic engagement. Nishbas umaycheres. The nishbas guys are getting from where we came now. There's a shvuas of an almana. A almana, before collecting the suba, has to swear that her husband did not leave anything for her prior to his passing, and or that she was not moichel the suba. She makes that oath. Umaycheres mikarka bailom. She can sell her husband's karka to get payment. Now, a lot of malba v'loiva we're going to learn. We mentioned it briefly yesterday and over Shabbos many times that there is real estate from which you're going to collect your debt. In most cases, there has to be a hachraza. That means there has to be a public announcement that so-and-so's property is being sold, and there's halachas, and it's announced for 30 days, and then for another 30 days. It's a whole spiel. It allows for that money to be monetized to its max. So the question will be, how much of it do you have to do for a widow? So the rule over here is, Bain, she, of course, but based in mumchen. That's ideal. Even Bain Shalom based in mumchen. We don't demand that much of her. It's easier relative, as long as they're going to be three people that have some understanding in real estate. You can't have stam three yeshiva bachrim being involved in that. Now, in other words, if the property that is being sold, that she's collecting from, belongs to someone else, she has the right to take it. Don't forget, the almana comes before the yisoimim. But who's going to compensate the yisoimim? Just to know, who's going to compensate the lekeach? The yisoimim. They'll be responsible to compensate if the property that was sold was purchased previously. Aval hagirusha, unlike a divorced wife, there's a higher standard. And we don't do that for the widow. Another rule, anytime something is sold in a beis din, announcements have to be made. Guys, what did we learn yesterday? For example, from a zoinus, we don't do that. Because from a zoinus, for the almana, what, you're going to wait 60 days, she'll die of hunger. For kavura, you don't do that, but for the ksuba, you do that. And in Hilchas Halva, in Hilchas Malva B'Leiva, we're going to learn more details about how do you sell it. Like you mentioned, it's a whole procedure. The ikad is, it's time. I think it's 30 days and another 30 days. There's steps you have to undergo. Anything that's sold outside of the beis din, and it's achraza. Guys, I want you to know there's different versions. I'm going to go not with the one that's printed in the Chayenu. I'm going to read like this. Even when you don't have to sell it in a beis din, but you have to sell it. The Rambam is reiterating what he wrote in the beginning of Allah Yud Gimel. Okay. Now, halacha yudam. Almana shemach lekarka b'ksuva. The almana sold real estate, but she sold it beina lebein atzmo. In other words, she didn't even get the three people. Forget about a beis din mumcha. She didn't even get. She sold the real estate. So I guess, is it valid or not? It depends. If after the fact we find out that she sold it for its correct market value, her sale stands. Even though, again, every widow has to take the oath. Okay, so the nishbas was almana, that her husband didn't prepay it, that she was not loichel. When do we say that it stands? Even though there was no beis din involved, as long as she didn't take that property, we don't let that. Avalim shama la'atzma. Then lo yasa klum afilo hechriza. She has to monetize. Don't forget there's Yisraelim there. She's traded from Yad Yisraelim. So for her to keep it, we don't know. If the Yisraelim agree for her to keep it, of course there's no problem. But she cannot unilaterally, she can sell it. But she can't keep that. Halacha tezva. Think about that. She did a great deal. She sold something that really had beis din, had the experts involved. They would have only gotten 100. People saw now mana, they did a tzedakah. What's her claim now? Her claim now is the state owes me the other 100. I already got 200. That's because of me. Or the opposite. Shava masayim b'meya. In both cases, she cannot collect anything else. On the first case, she got 200. On the second case, even though she only pocketed 100, but the Yisraelim tell her, I'm sorry, you did a bad deal for you, not for us. You took from our estate the value. This kabbalah klum. Again, and even here, always, an almana has to do shwas almana. However, now listen to this. Now, if she sold it by herself, that's what we began. She didn't even get a beis din involved. So it's only standing if she sold it shava b'shava. What happens if she was off less than the 6th? We're going to learn later that normally if you're off on the sale less than a 6th, it's fine. Not over here, because she needed really to sell it with 3 people. She only sold it for a dinar less. Now, meya v'dinar, right? B'meya, in other sales, you would say the sale is standard because you were off less than the shtus. Shtus means the 6th. Here, no. The fact that she undersold it, even though she undersold it only, it was worth 101, and she sold it for 100. Michra batel. And even if she says, 1 second, I lost the dinner, I'm gonna out of pocket give the dinner. You don't say that. If the almana will sell it without at least these three people involved, it's only valid if she sold it for the correct price. Obviously, if she got more, good. But good for the Yisraelim. Halacha tezayin.
She sold the $200 property for 100. You said it's fine. And
not fine. Fine means if the Yisraelim can tell her, you got it. The Yisraelim can nullify the sale if they want. Their angle, in other words, they can be mevatel the sale. You sold it for the wrong amount of money, or they can tell her, no, that property was worth 200. Goodbye.
In the second case, they do that.
In other words, if the Yisraelim want to get their chayv off, they can. If everyone agrees to it, there's no problem. If there's a problem, then michra kayim if she sold it for the exact amount. Let's go back to Allah. So it's really, the rule is an almana should know that when she makes a sale, she needs to get this best, not the biggest mumchim, but you have to have a base of people who know real estate. And she made 4 sales, 4 different properties. And to the 4th, she sold something that's worth meya and a dinar, 100 and 1 for 100. So even though the last one is batel, but the other 3 are fine. You get it? So she has much less headache because whatever was sold for the right price is standing, even though she sold it without a base. A woman is allowed to sell a ksuba or to give it b'matana. And what happens if that were to happen? It means when she died, someone else was holding the note. If she dies when the husband is alive, right? In other words, she died after her husband passed away. So the money was owed to her, but she didn't yet make shuas halmana ein lo klum. That's the whole concept. You're buying futures. Buying futures in this context means when a man buys someone a wife's ksuba, he's taking a risk. Because in the case where, like we just mentioned, you won't get anything. Now, guys, you remember this. The woman sells some of her ksuba, or she used it, not all of it, some of it, to guarantee a loan that she's taking. She gifted only some of it. Now the husband dies. She sells after her husband dies. She can sell his real estate to be goiva her ksuba. The tigba hashar bein bebezdin mumchen bein b'shloishin amanim. In other words, we don't tell her, since you are not fully in the possession of the ksuba, you don't have the right that we mentioned above. As long as some money is owed to her, this leniency, so to say, that she goes into eskarka and she only needs a basin of shloisha, v'chule is still afforded to her. What happens if whatever she's doing doesn't cover the debt at one time? She has to make many sales. She has that right to do it. In a normal basin, she, in other words, until when she collects her ksuba, even if it's to begin with only part of the ksuba, she has these rights. Halacha yutes hamecheres ksuba, when a woman is selling her ksuba, bein la achedim, bein la baila, loy ibda sha'ar tanai ksuba. Even if she sold all of her ksuba, when you buy a woman's, married woman's ksuba, she only says ksuba, you're buying the iked and the toisefes, not anything else. And therefore, if she has from this husband a male son, we're going to learn in Pedicure test today. We don't have enough time to explain it too many times. We'll explain it when we learn it. There's something called ksubas bin in dichrin. We learned this in Pedicure base. So even though she sold the ksuba, there'll be ksubas bin in dichrin, as we'll explain. She didn't lose that. That's only if she sold it. Doesn't matter to whom. But there are other people. But if a woman is moichel the ksuba to her husband, that's what it means. When she tells her husband, I'm moichel the ksuba, if the call tonight ksuba, vafilim azoinus ein la alon. When it comes to dinei mechila, we spoke about it already before, unlike almost all other financial obligations for which a kinyan is necessary, you don't need a kinyan ever for mechila. And you don't need Adam. Adam if they're going to deny. But if everyone is telling you what happened, you don't need Adam. That's not Ede Kiyum. Kishar HaMoichalin, like any other than a Moichalin. She'enam tzricham la'edem le'kinyan. Ela b'devarim b'lvad. But who? She'yeh devarim shadas umechas aleim v'lo yeh divrei schoik v'hesel divrei tamo. Now, sometimes the person says the words yes. He said the word yes, but he said it with the niggin of no. It's called bitmiyah, right? Yes. But you think I'll be moichel like suba? So that's not called mechila. No, it's at that moment, it has to be verbal. You don't need more than verbal. You don't need a kinyan, but the verbal should be done where it's clear that I'm moichel to you, Mike Suba. And if she made that statement, then imagine, then she wasn't only moichel the ikar ksuba, but she's moichel all of the obligations that we learned, the 10 obligations the husband has to his wife.
All 10, even the first 3? It's not ksuba, only the last 7.
Tonight ksuba is the last 7. And let's go to mechila. So we learned also if she's moichel, so the money, the she'ed and the ksus, she's moichel, he doesn't owe. And the aina, we learned that yesterday. And the aina, so her mechila helps for him not to be oiver an lo yigra. But if the man was not makayim pruravu, then he's mechuyev to do pruravu. Okay. Perikut Ches is longer. It has 28 halachas. The tzvika is going to really schwitz it out today. And now we're going to learn a new law. Now we're going through the Tanai Ksuba. And what's amazing is that when, God forbid, if a woman is a widow, this general rule, that until when she marries, even though we spoke yesterday of doing shidduchim, we'll see how the Rambam words it. Until when she gets married, she gets to live off the estate of her husband. Until she collects her ksuba or she gets married. And it's amazing that, because how much is the ksuba already? Even then, the number of the ksuba, even then, had more value. We said that a meya, the parnasa for a year is 100 mana. So let's say she was a psula. So she has from the estate rights for 2 years living. If she doesn't get remarried, and if she doesn't ask for the cash out of the ksuba, she can live 30 years and live off the estate. That's going to be the big topic of this chapter. Perek Yud Ches has 28 halachas, beginning with halacha Alf. Says the Rambam, Almana nizoines menichse yarshim kol zman almanusa. 2 things stop it. Number 1, acha titel ksuba, until she comes to get her ksuba. Now, what does pshat? She gets her ksuba? Umisha titba ksuba suba, based from when she demands payment, ein lamazoines. V'chein im machra ksubasa kula. We have to remember what we learned at the last chapter, right? If she sold her entire ksuba, right? Even though this is going to be an exception. Oy mishkana ksubasa. She used it prior. Oy asasa ksuba apoitika la'achar. What apoitika means that she tells someone else, please lend me money. She's a married woman. The guy says, if you won't pay back, your husband is not going to pay. She says, no. This land, which is designated for my ksuba, that's for you to collect from. Right? Whether she made the above bench whether she did it b'chaya baila, whether she did it b'achar misas baila, was if she completely gave away her ksuba, she loses her right to the mazonas. But imachra only mitzasa, so she cashed out, but only some of it. Yesh la mazonas. Until the Rambam wrote until when she collects her ksuba. Now the Rambam is writing the other thing that stops that, and that is umisha tis ades ho almana. The Rambam writes from when she gets engaged. Ibdam is on yourself. Okay, first of all, I stand corrected when I spoke out for the Rambam. The Rambam paskins from when she gets engaged. The Beis Yosef paskins that from when achan shtadech, from when she does a shidduch. And we spoke out. A shidduch doesn't only mean that I'm engaged when she's oisekes b'shidduchim. That's many people say. This is a real big halacha. This. Okay, halacha base. This right that she has, when we use the word mezoinus, doesn't only mean to eat. It means a lot more than you think. Mezoinus also means that all of her clothing expenses, whatever she was afforded when he was alive, and we learned these dinim over Shabbos, she gets from that estate. And oklei tashmeish, all of the household utensils. Umadoid here in LA and housing, that can be the most expensive. All of that is Yosheves Bamadur Shahoisabachaiba. Now there's details in the housing. So let's go. If while the husband was alive, she was living at that address, that's her home. And everything that the house has, all of the furniture and all of the stuff, that's hers to use. She doesn't own it, but she gets to keep on using it. We're not speaking about the Yisraelim having to pay. We're speaking about the own slaves. They are at her service as she was before. However, there's one thing. What happens if the building she was living in collapsed? So they're not obligated to build it up. Now we're going to see soon. It doesn't mean that she's homeless. It means that the Yisraelim out of this state are chayiv to rent a new place for her. But she cannot insist for that place to be built up. She cannot even insist for her to build it up. Once it's not more livable, then that connection to the place is not something that the Yisraelim are obligated to maintain. The Imam, which is, I'm so connected to this place. I don't want you to pay for the rebuilding it. I'll rebuild it. No, ain't Shloimim life. They don't want. So if that's the case, she's going to make sure that the building never collapses. So if you keep on maintaining it, so she's not allowed to do types of maintenance that will prevent her from happening. Like techazek bitcoin, like titcha isoi, elatation by k'maishahu, and if she doesn't like it, oy teitze. The guy's not teitze hefker chas v'sholom. Teitze means that the Yisraelim will come to an agreement with her. Listen here, this house, the guy when he was alive could be he lived in a $4 million house. They tell her, they want to tell her nicely, dear mother, you can live in a nice house that's a $2 million house. No, if the house is standing, she gets to stay there. The moment it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference about the mother. It's the almana. Could be she's not the mother of the Yorshim. Could be she's the mother. It doesn't matter. She has that right. Now, the Yorshim Shemachru mother almana, if they make a sale while she was living in it, they did nothing. She doesn't own it, but they had no right to sell it. If the house collapsed, let's go to a case where the man never owned the house. He was renting his whole life. So if he was renting his whole life, she doesn't have that right because the estate doesn't own it. So then listen, if they want to keep it, of course, they can keep it. But then the estate, which means the Yisraelim, are obligated to pay for another rental. What type of rental lefi kavoda? We learned over the Shabbos. Let me word it in English. The same standard that she had has to continue. If there's no money, there's no money. But if there's money, even if this is going to eat up all of the Yerusha, she will always come first. Now, what happens if prior to her marriage, she came from a social ladder lower? So we already learned also over Shabbos that in marriage, the wife goes up and she never goes down. That means that if he was wealthier, then the Yisraelim cannot say, okay, listen, your husband passed away, go back to the way it was before. No. But if she was wealthier before, then she continues on her stand. The standard of hers is never low. So when a man marries a woman who's coming from a wealthier home, he should understand what he's being machayim himself for, because it's not halachically correct for a man to lower the standard of living of his wife. In the beginning of marriage, everyone is very nice. I love you, and then
even if she agrees in a prenup or something. Well,
let's not get into prenups. Even if she agrees, he should understand that those words are not that significant. That's because she's confused because she thinks she loves him. I'm saying that a man is mechuyev to keep the standard of life that she had before. That's what we learned over Shabbat. Halacha dal.
This amount is being paid for her.
Huge.
That's going to be more than her suba.
Much. I'm saying that much more. You ain't not reich more. Even today that we didn't hire the number of the ksuba. This is, if a man dies, unless he was very wealthy, the Yisraelim get nothing. That's the way I see it. Tomat. Depends. The wife gets, and then the daughters get. Then the daughters, we're going to learn this today. There'll be very little left for Yerusha. When people say, only the sons inherit. There's nothing left for you to inherit.
You don't need to drop with civil left. That's sold before.
Gavaldik, that's the point that he's saying. She just doesn't come out. If she gets married, then the new husband is being mechayiv to support her.
Right.
Yeah. Halacha dao. Birchas habayis. Birchas habayis, just say by heart. You have to brush it through. Birchas habayis means that when it comes to food, we all know this. If you have to make food for me, let's say it's going to cost you here in LA $50 a day. If 5 people are eating together, it won't cost $250. It's going to cost a little bit less. So there's a bracha in the house when people are together because the same number covers more people. So now the question is, where will she live? They have to support her with mezainas. Does she have the right to say, I don't like you orphans, how you treated me, whether it's her kids or not? I want to live by my own. If she has a halachically just taina, for example, she's young and they're not her kids. She says it's not appropriate for me to live with you. Or she doesn't have a justifiable taina. We'll see how that affects the type of mezainis she gets to take. That's called birchas habayis. Birchas habayis maneuver. When people are together, there's a bigger bracha. You get to spend less money, covers more people for food. If they eat on their own, he's giving not a number of money, he's giving a number of amount. If all 5 live in a house, be'eruv, you'll see, you don't have to make 5 kavam of food. You get away with making 4 kavam of food. It's not just food, it's all other expenses. Lefikach, right, carpool, they want people to carpool. In other words, join together. Almana sha'amra, any zaz in the base avi. My husband passed away, I'm moving back with my father. I'm moving back with my mother. And send me the food over there. No. Now, v'im lav, it's not that they give her nothing. They cannot give her nothing. They can make the cheshbon. They can tell her, had you been here, it would have costed us a month your food $500. We're sending you $500. The fact that you are eating by your own, now it's costing you $700. That's on you. Come join us. But if she has a legitimate time, for example, she's still young, and though the yarsham are not hers, there's yichud issues. She doesn't want to live with young men. Then they have to give her all of the food that she needs. Now, however, if whatever money they gave her, there's leftover money, so they're not mechuyev money, they're mechuyev mezainas. So all of the leftover food or money goes back to the yarsham. Mezainas, goes to the yarsham. If she gets ill, let's go further. Guys, it's counterintuitive, but it makes a lot of sense at the end. If the type of medicine that she needs is not a fixed amount, it's a lifelong illness, then this is part of mezainas. You know why? Because mezainas is also, there's no end to it. And she gets to collect all of the medicine from the estate of the yarsh. But if it's a definable illness that you know how much will it cost for her to get healed, that takes it out of the category of mazoinus. They're not mechuyev to pay for that. So it's advantageous financially for her to be more ill, not to be less ill. Now, nishbas, if she gets kidnapped, ein hayoshim chayav l'vdoisa, afilo hoisa yevama. So that obligation does not go on the estate. It's only on the husband. Now, even if she was kidnapped while the husband was alive, and the husband is chayiv, like we learned over Shabbos, to sell everything he owns to redeem his wife, and he died while she was in captivity, that means the chiyuv was on the husband. That chiyuv doesn't go to the Yisraelim. She has to redeem herself. And if she doesn't have money, well, then she should cash out. She's doing all this while she's kidnapped. She's putting together money. The Yisraelim can say, we're not mechuyev.
And then once she pays out of the ksuba,
Once she cashes out of ksuba, she loses all her other rights.
she can't go back to the house.
Well, she can pay rent, correct? Then she loses her right, correct? Halacha. Based almana, let's go weiter. If the almana dies, so what do the yarshim? What are they chayiv as their father? They have to bury her. Let's go. The husband dies. She has to take an oath that she didn't get her ksuba, like we keep on saying, and then she dies. Yorshin ksubasa, since if she has heirs that are not the same heirs of the father, since they yarshin her ksuba, because as we'll see, once she makes the shvuas almana, then the value of her ksuba goes to her heirs. Whoever yarshin from her has to chayv her kvura. Because there's other yarshin. Maisa yidei almana, if she brings an income, it goes to the yarshin, not to her yarshin. No, it's whoever supporting her gets the maisa yidei. The yoyde sha'amar lamana. But if one of the heirs tell the almana, listen here, you're earning money. You keep your salary, and we're not going to be chayiv with mezoinus. We learned mezoinus is mezoinus and ksus and mother. Ain't shaymim loy. The yarshim have no such right. But if she wants, she has the right. No, it's for her benefit. So if she says, I'm earning a big salary, I'm keeping my salary, and I'm giving up for going the mezoinus, she has that right, but not the yarshim. Halacha zayin.
Otherwise, her salary goes to the heirs.
Yeah, their support. She's getting mezoinus, she's getting ksus, she's getting mother. It goes together. Halacha zayin. All obligations that a woman has to do for her husband and almana has to do for the Yisraelim when she's being supported off their estate. Chutz from the three types of a service that has to do with intimacy, which is pouring liquid, even more than serving food, but pouring liquid, preparing the bed, and washing one's face, hands, and feet. Halacha 8. Metzias almana, if she finds a lost article or if she wins the lottery, that is hers. And the Yarshim don't get any of that. Halacha 9, when it comes to the dunya, both Nichsim and Nichsim Barzel, they tell us, that is something that the woman always collects. The Ein Yarshim have no rights into that. Only if the Nechasim were Nichsit Sim Barzel. We already explained what that meant. And it was worth $1 million when she got married. Now it's worth $1.2 million. So the extra $200,000, that taka belongs to the estate. That is what they have the rights to. But the original value of the Nichsit Sim Barzel and all of the Nichsim alike, this has nothing to do with everything we're saying. Even if she's being supported by the Yisraelim, that's all hers. Now, even if the almana dies without swearing that she did not get the ksuba, that she was not meichel the ksuba, when it comes to the nedunya, her orphans will always get the nedunya. No, the nedunya, her dowry is hers. Only again, if by nichsit shein barzel, because of the husband being mekabel achrayis, if it got evaluated, that belongs to the husband and now to the heirs. That is something that goes to the Yerushalayim. Halacha Yud. Almana shetavsa mental klinken eshetizameh. The husband dies. She's an almana. We learned this chapter. She has the right to mezoinus. She went ahead and she decided, I don't want to deal with these stingy Yisraelim. I have to go every week and ask them for money. And you know what I'm doing? I know that he left in the safe. He left a couple of golden coins. I'm taking the golden coins. I'm notifying everyone. I'm taking it. And I'm letting everyone know I'm going to be using it. This is not for my ksuba. This is for me to have where to cash out my weekly mezoinas. Ben shotaf semichayim, ben shotaf salachamisa. Even if she chopped the whole talent of gold, tremendous amount of money. Beis Din does not take it away from her, but they record it. Ella, they write Beis Din mashatafsa. They make a record. They make a cheshbon. You took something that has a value of $1 million. The Yisraelim have to give you every month X amount of money. So they, and therefore every week it's going to be deducted from. Either until she dies, or it runs out, which can happen, by the way. It can run out. Now, if there's anything left, if she dies, then the Yorshim take it. It's not hers, but we don't give her right away all that money. But if she took it, then she gets to keep it. A woman, your husband is in the deathbed. She doesn't want to have to deal with, even if it's her kids. She knows where the stuff is. If she grabs something, we don't tell her you're not allowed to grab it. If she grabbed it, then okay, fine. Then the Beis Din will make the cheshbon with her. But if after the husband dies, she grabs anything of value, not for her mezainas, but for her ksuba, then eino goyva mehem. Well, I'll tell you why. Because when she dies, the Torah says they're yoidish everything. So when it comes to mezainas, that we allow her. When it comes to the ikar ksuba, she has to go to Beis Din to collect it. Okay, halacha yud beis.
Can she use this talclin as a mashkin for more stuff?
No, she can only use it to eat off what she's owed from this thing. Halacha yud beis. In other words, let me word it this way: that if a man knows that his wife is going to have a hard time getting money from the heirs, what's owed to her, he should do her the normal thing and make sure that she's toifus. He should set it up in a way where she should have her dignity. Halacha yud beis. Tikna go'onim shetikba ha'isha haksuba utnai ksuba min ha'matalton. That is what we learned yesterday. This man Chazal, she only had the rights to collect it from real estate. Because of Golos, it became more normal that men don't own land, which was when we are back in our holy land, every Yid owns land. So therefore they said that she can collect it even from movables. Even if she didn't grab it, Beis Din will tell the Yisraelim, you have to support her. If Hayarshim Leitlan Oisam, then Behem Alam Azoinas. If she didn't grab it, she can't say, leave it in the Beis Din. Furthermore, even if they wrote in the Ksuba that she should get Mazoinas from a Taltalin, and the husband dies and she didn't take it, the Yisraelim took it, she cannot demand for that to be placed in escrow, in Beis Din. But if the husband left land, she can prevent from them selling it. How can you sell it when I know that I'm not going to get married? I know that over the next, I plan to live a long life, and I know that over these years I'm going to be here in LA. You're eating up a place, $200,000 a year. Don't sell the land. But here, but if they sold it, she has a problem. Listen to this, guys. Now, 1 second. When they sell it, they have money. If she can prove they have the money, she'll collect it from the money. But here, if the heirs are trying to finagle out of this responsibility, so they're going to sell the metaltalin, they're going to claim they lost the money. That's why, again, it's basically in between the lines. A woman who has such a fear should seize metaltalin. Halacha yudal. The Rambam is not saying those words, but good. Halacha yudal. A man was married to many women, to many wives. Sorry, even though he married one after the other. And we learned in last chapter that when it comes to the collection of the ksuba, there is a din kedima. But when it comes to this obligation of them living off the estate, Mizoinas b'shava, they all have equal rights. She'ein din kedima b'mizoinas. Mamish like no din kedima by metaltalin, as we learned today. Halacha tezvav almana shenaflu l'fnei yavam. Now, what's the rule of a yavam, guys? The rule of the yavam is that the one who will do yibum, he will inherit all of the property of the deceased brother. Another din, she's not allowed to do yibum for the first 3 months. Remember that? That's called havchana. So, for the first 3 months, where no one is allowed to consummate the marriage, then Nizoinis Michel Baal, that property that the husband had left, Furthermore, guys, if during those 3 months we discover that she's pregnant, or if when he died she was pregnant, which means she's not bound by Yibum at all. So then if she's like any other widow that we learned until now, she gets to live off the estate. Either might be a son. If there'll be anything left at the end, then he'll inherit it. Yolda ben shal kayama, then baited in the zoynis velachas kol ne'amunus k'shar anosh. We didn't say what happens if a man only leaves daughters. We'll get to that in a moment. Loinim says moberes achashosh chadashim. If she was not pregnant, or God forbid she was pregnant but she had a miscarriage, then what? Einoin nezenes lo mishal bal lo mishal yavam elo teivas yivama lichnois oilachloitz. Like halacha tezayin. If she made it's okay, so listen, she's in limbo. So she's demanding for one of the brothers to either do yibum or do chalitza. And she made that demand in Beis Din. And the brother ran away. The brother got ill, or the yavam was not present. Now she gets to live off the estate without even making an oath. If there is a yavam, but he's a minor, guys,
the state of the yavam. The yavam is their brother.
Yeah, whatever state will be, or if he has other money, he had another dad, whatever the case is, not another mom. Whatever he lives up to yavam. If the yavam is a katan, and a yavam katan cannot do libum, right? Cannot do chalitza, but you're not going to do a marriage. In other words, when does she get the right to live off the yavam? Only if the yavam was mechuyev to consummate, and he did it. Halacha Yudches.
So then she would be getting in the zonos of the.
No. Then she won't get anything. Halacha Yudches. It's not good to be a yavam. Misha yiched karka leishtoi. Misha yiched karka leishtoi b'shas misa lemezoynesel. Look, he designated land. He told his family. V'amar yeh makim ploinis lemezoynes. You know what the din is? Harei riba lemezoynes. What is riba? Riba doesn't mean she gets this plus everything else. Riba means if whatever he designated doesn't cover her living expenses, so she takes what the husband designated and then she takes the rest from the orphans. But what happens, had they gone to Beis Din, they would have made a lefi kavoida, is like we said, $200,000 a year. What the husband designated is 250, is $1 million a year. If he said, this is for your mezoinas, all of it goes for her. Wow. Avolim amarla, yeh makim ploini b'mezoinas, v'shaskam, ein la elapedes oisa makim bulvad, shaharei katzas la mezoinas. Yeh makim ploini limezoinas means all of it. Yeh makim ploini b'mezoinas means whatever my obligation is should be covered by that place, but not more. And she agreed, which is fine. She's getting mezoinas, but she's not getting the riba mezoinas. Halacha Yutes. Almana, speak. I'm sorry, but you're gonna have a tough time today. Almana shovala Beis Din. We should have started earlier. Almana shovala Beis Din l'tvay mezoinas. She's coming to the Beis Din. Chavra halka. Yesh mishahoida shapoiskel mezoinas ve'emash bein ois. She doesn't even have to take a oath, because what did we learn? That her husband sometimes will designate something for her mezoinas. So it's not like the almana by the ksuba. She has to make an oath. My husband did not already give me the ksuba. She doesn't have to take an oath. However, the Rambam says people who made that psak din, they confused din with another sugi and shas about a woman whose husband went to Medina Sayam. Over there's a shvua basoif. So since there's a shvua basoif, there's no shvua batchila. But over here, the Rabbi sayoyru she'elam mezoynes mebezin achut tishava, because she's collecting it menichse yisoyim. It's coming out of, and there's a rule. And the Rambam paskins that way. She has to take an oath that the husband did not already cover her mezoinos. She's coming to court to ask for mezoinos. All right. By the way, I want to know, what does basoif mean here? Basoif, you know what basoif means? Shuki basoif means when she's coming to collect her ksuba. No, we make her swear right now. And they give her mezoinos. She can sell herself to cover the mezoinos, as long as she's selling it b'shloish and amanim b'loy hachraza. Everything we learned before. If she sells without any Beis Din, but she sold it for the correct amount of money, and then that what the shwas almana At the end, when she comes to collect her ksuba, that's when she takes the oath. Halacha chafalov, the common way from the mazoinus. Now, if we are selling for her mazoinus, now guys, we said if she chaps a talent of gold, and the talent of gold is good for the next 10 years, we don't take it out of her. But if we are going into the state of the heirs and we're selling the estate, we do segments of 6 months. Why segments of 6 months? It's interesting because, like we began to state it, she has mazoinus until two things: either until she gets remarried, or if she collects her ksuba. So when we are outside, we're objective. Every 6 months, 6 months. 6 months at a time. And it doesn't mean she's going to get the whole 6 months because she can get engaged tomorrow. But if 6 months segments. Kedei lozanem shisha chadoshim v'lo yoser al zeh. Shema tesaris. Shema tigma ksubas. Moichnan almanas. Another thing, when a guy buys it's very gewaldic. When you buy real estate, it's very expensive. So since the guy is buying it in order for her to have mazoinus, he's buying the value of 6 months. You can make a deal that he only has to pay. You divide it into 6, and every 30 days he pays that amount. That's okay for her. She doesn't. You don't have to make a sale where she gets the whole 6 months at a time. Not every day. Once a month. Today in America, it's a normal thing. People get paychecks once a month. We're familiar with this type of livelihood. And then if after 60 days, 6 months passes, she's not yet engaged or she did not collect the ksuba, another 6 months. Another detail. What happens if she's eating up all the estate and there's only going to be 200 zuz left? So then at the end, you give her the 200 zuz. So they keep on selling it until you have the minimum amount for a ksuba. The goy v'ksavasim in Hashan, and then Bohilach Islam. And then she goes away because there's nothing else left. That's it. Allah chav beis. Almana shepaskal beis the mezoinus. Ein machash v'nim al ma'asira. We said that if she's getting supported from the estate, all of her income goes to the heirs. Now, does the Beis Din tell her that, or do the heirs have to demand it? The heirs have to demand it. If they don't demand it, they don't get it. Im matzu al ma'asira de'al noitel noisam. V'im lav pachom ladarko. It says that Rambam that if the Yarshim are minors, then Beis Din has to demand it of her. In other words, they don't just let it float. They tell her, okay, we're supporting you, but what about your income? And they find out about it and they make sure that the money goes to the state. The moment she doesn't have the document, aside of the fact we learned that she can be in the marriage, but she cannot have a relation with her husband. If she doesn't have a document, she cannot collect mezainis. Because we say, maybe she sold it, and only then however, if only a kinyan was made, then no such a thing comes. A woman whose husband traveled, and she went with the husband, and you know what? She returns without him, and she declares Meis Bailey. If she wants, she can right away start getting the zoynes. If she wants, she can take her ksuba because of the rule that a woman is nemenes loymar meis baili. Why is she nemenes loymar meis baili? Because it's called milsavida de giluya. A woman is not believed to say, "My husband gave me a divorce" without proof, because you can never find out. But meis baili, and if he's not dead, he can come back. She knows that. And since she's muteres li'nasei, she's muteres to collect the ksuba, as we learned at the end of yesterday's third page. However, in other words, she's able to be meshaket. It's not davar ha'asur li'golis, and therefore she's not. Now, 1 second. What happens now? She can at least eat up the amount of her ksuba, because if she's still married, then he owes her mazoinus. They're not going to give her all the ksuba. They're going to give her mazoinus until she reaches that max. And if he divorced her, as she's saying, well, then at least she's owed a ksuba. So until she consumes the money of her ksuba, even though she's not in a menace to get remarried, she can collect that amount of money. Tell us mazoinus, and then once she hit that max, she doesn't have a raya, she's divorced. 25.
She comes back from the trip, and then they decide to stay married. She has zero.
No. If he was married, then he is mechoyv to give her mezainas. She only ate up kedei mezainas. She didn't deduct any of it. If he comes back and he's moida, but if he comes back and he says, I never divorced you,
She's already got the ksuba.
She didn't get. She's not getting her ksuba. They're giving her every week the monthly stipend up until the money. And if he's alive and she's married, so then we termed that wasn't ksuba money, that was mezainis money. Like there was a doubt whether she's divorced, and then her husband died. Now, guys, a big difference, right? A divorcee gets ksuba; she doesn't get mezainis. She does not get mezainis. And almana, that was today's pedic yud ches. It's a bam pedic. It's tremendous amounts of money, but we have a doubt. Ain't on mezainis menichasa. That's your classic hamoitzim mechaveir olavaraya. She'ein moitzim miyad l'gerish misafek. Avo b'chaya ba'ila yesh lo mezainis, like we mentioned. Ashet is God is gerish. It's very interesting. In other words, why can't you argue if there's a suffix migoreshes? She's saying, I'm not divorced. He's saying, I divorced you. There we don't say that, because since a woman who's suffix migoreshes may not marry another man, that's why he has to support her. A woman, she's either an almana or a gerusha. Since she can get married and someone else can support her, so therefore we go to the normal. That's the logic. Halacha chavav, almana, aniyah. How did she live as an almana for 2 years? I have no idea, but she did not collect it. Or if she's wealthy and she went 3 years without asking for the mezainis, you know what that means? Vitra. You know what vitra means? She was moichel, guys, not moichel the past, not moichel the future, not moichel, only moichel the past. Oh, it's no retroactive. If she comes after 18 months, hey, you owe me for it. They have to give her for the whole past 18 months. Or if she's an ashira, an aniyah, 2 years. If you didn't collect for 2 years, or an ashira, that means you were moichel the past. Vitra, the ein lo mezainis b'shanam shavu, but yes, misha shetava, the im shasa pachas mizem. But if she waited, I take back my 18 months. She waited. Nebach, the Yisraelim are hoping she's not coming. 1 day less, loy vitra. The Yisraelim have to put it in escrow. Make sure your money is there. Halacha chavzayin. Almana shetava mezainis mina yarshim. And she says, we gave you, and she says, I didn't take it. Kolzman shaloi ni says, we say, wow. And if they don't have an ayah, she has to swear hesses. Now, this was midrabanan. She has to swear that she took it, and she gets all the money. Again, if that amount of time passed, vitra, but before that, umishani says, the moment she's married, then we say the opposite. Or the Yisraelim swear the shwas hesses that they already gave her. And then they are freed from the obligation. Final halacha in this Pedic Chav Ches, din toisvis ksuba kedin iked. Everything that we learned now, right? The guys, toisvis and iked are the same. Lefikach. Almana shetova imachre imachla mishkanot tesefes ksuba. That's what we said. If she sells all of it, she was meichel all of it, and she loses mezainis. But what happens? Avalam tova mixas vinicha mixas. As long as some of it is left, right, Dovi? That's what you said. Even if she collected all of the iked, but she only didn't collect the toisefes, she still has mezainis. Now, no, when she makes this general declaration, she means both. Finally, it's very easy. We're learning 2 dinim. And the 2 dinim is in this order. Ksubas bin in dichrin, as we'll explain what that means. We keep on mentioning it. That's Pedic Yutes. And the other, Tanai Ksuba, that the daughters will be Nezoines Menichsei Aviyam, not as much as the Almana. But again, that's in most cases, unless the man was very wealthy, or if there's enough money to live up the interest or the user fruit. But if not, if you have to eat up the principal, then we'll see. Dine Yerusha are for sons, but after you learn these dinim from the Tanai Ksuba, wow, it's not so simple for heirs to have anything. Halacha, Pedic Yutes. Pedic Yutes has 22 halachas. Okay, it's not 28, it's 10-7. Here we go. Halacha, Aleph, Chavre Yidin, B'Tanai Ksuba. As we learned in Pedic Yud Beis, let's begin with Ksubas Binin Dichrin. Sheyu Banav has Charim Yorshim Ksubas Iman. I'll tell you by heart, it's very simple. A man is married, and first she died. Now, what happens if a woman dies? If a woman dies, like if she pre-sold her ksuba, the buyer lost it. If she died, there's not mechoyev. Hold on. It's possible that, let's say Leah, Yaakov marries Leah. He had Reuven. And then Leah dies. So Yaakov has no chiyuv to give her the ksuba. But hold on. Yaakov then marries another wife, or had another wife before. And he had Shimon, he had Yosef from Rachel. When Yaakov dies later, what's the din Yerusha from sons? It goes paternally. Reuven and Yosef, let's take out din b'chayra. Two brothers, they should yarshin equally. We don't say that. We say that after the father dies, the money of the ksuba that the father was machayev to Reuven's dad, who's not to Reuven's mother, which is not the mother of Yosef, that's Leah, that's Rachel. First, that goes to Reuven. The money that the father was machayev to give to Rachel, had he divorced her, had he predeceased her, goes to Yosef. And then the remaining money is divided equally. That's called ksubas v'nedich. So that what? That the banim hazacharim will be yoidish ksuba simon, and let's include, that's the ikar and the toisvis, and the nedunya, same thing, because what do we say? We say that the midrabanan, the Rambam says, a husband inherits his wife. The nedunya can be a lot of money. The nedunya is her money, but she predeceased him. Okay, so it goes to the father. But she only brought that into the marriage with the precondition, so to say, that after you will pass away, our sons will get that. Not sons you'll have with another wife. It came from my house. Makes sense. Guys, why are we not saying nichse malug? I'll tell you why. Because when she dies, the nichse malug is not his. You have to understand that the nichse malug never went to Yaakov. It's her property. He only has the right to use it. You understand? While they are alive. Kate said, for example, Nasa Isha, who has a ksuba. He's putting everything together. The ksuba and the money that she brought into the marriage is 1,000. And she gave birth to a son. Let's go to the Reuven. And then she died. Then Leah passed away. It can be, and then Yaakov marries Rachel. And he had Yosef. And what Yaakov obligated to Rachel total was 200. And they have a son Yosef. And then Umeisa Machayev. Rachel died. Mi'ikir din Torah, whatever Yaakov Yarshins, well, it's Midrabana, but now he owns everything. The Ikir, the Dunya. Now that Yaakov dies, if he has two sons, they're chaylik. No. And let's say he left 2,000. Don't forget, there was 1,000 to Leah, there was 200 to Rachel, and he leaves 2,000. You don't say Shava b'Shava or the B'char Pishnaim. You don't do any of that. First, you take the 1,400 is going to be gone. I'm not 12. Thank you. Okay. But Rishon gets Ela b'Kshuva Simmer. Reuven is getting 1,000. But Ashniya, Rachel is going to be getting, Yosef is going to be getting the Messiah from Rachel. Now you have 800 left. The 800 left is when again, if one is a B'char, so then you're going to make it, you're going to divide it not into 2, you'll divide it into 3, and the B'char will get Pishnai. If he doesn't have a din of a B'char for this, whatever, however it works. The Nimsa B'Yadman Arishan in our case, where Shava B'Shava, the first one will end up with 14 because he got his 1,000. From the 800, he gets half, and the other one will get 600. Oh. When do we say that? Now listen to this. That's the number. That if, in our case, he died, if Yaakov passed away and he left 1,201 dinar, like this, even after you do the Ksubas Benon Dichrim, there is a dinar left to apply the din Torah. Oh, Yosef. Abel, if when Yaakov passes away, Yosef dinar, even if he left not 1,200, he left 1,200 and a half a dinar. 3/4 of a dinner. There wasn't all of it plus a full dinner. Then Ksubas Benon Dichrim doesn't go into effect. Why? If you don't even have one dinner to divide as the Torah wants us to divide a Yerusha, it's going to come out that this tonight is being mevatel chiluk Yerushas bein habanim shavashum and HaTorah, and the Chachamim lechatchila were not misaking Ksubas Benon Dichrim b'mokayim that it's being oiker the dinner d'oraisa. We mentioned, I think yesterday or over Shabbos, that even though there is a way of making a halachic will which will circumvent the din Yerusha of the Torah, the common is that if someone is writing such a will, he should be told, leave not a dinner, but like $1,000, and allow the din Yerusha of the Torah to work, not to be oiker the din, and everything else do what you want. Similar to this concept. Halachadal. Who adin? Let's go by it. So the Rambam gave the first example of Reuven married Leah, and then Leah died, and then he married Rachel. It doesn't have to be in that order. It doesn't mean that he married wife number 2 only after wife number 1 died. No, And he has from one of them, he has male sons, guys, not daughters, this is only male sons, because we're speaking about Dina Yerusha Torah. If his estate has more than covering all the ksubas, there's still a dinner left. Kol echad the echad yerush ksubas. Imay ksuba means iker and toisvis, and then the dunya. Ahasha'or cholken oisim b'shavim. Halacha hey. I want to correct something. If she brought a nichse maloy, my friends, then when she dies, if she dies before him, he's going to yarshin it, because he's koydem lakol, but that's not called in a dunya, because that was it was she never brought it into the marriage. That's something that she owns.
But it's part of his now.
It doesn't matter, but that's not included in Psuras Nifla. It's not called in a dunya, because since even in marriage it was not really his. User through doesn't mean it's his. This Tanai is on the Nedunya. Okay. Halachei. Amru hayisoimim ein onomal manichsi avinu yosef din kadesh k'zuba siman. Imagine the guy dies. It's big numbers, and if you're not going to do this division, then Reuven will lose a lot of money. And they know the father's estate is exact to cover both. So you know what Reuven is saying? I'm going to put into our father's estate a dinner. Now there'll be a dinner. Now do ksubas ben dichlin. You don't do that. You can't do that. Ein shlemim lahem. How much was it worth when he died? And another thing, when you make the evaluation, what happens if when the father died, it fluctuated, because real estate went up, real estate went down. What are you looking for? You're looking for the moment of death. Even though it happened prior to them coming to Beis to make the division, when you make that evaluation, and Shaman and Ella. Kishas misas avim. Guys, this is a very important rule to remember. Right, halacha va. Doesn't mean anything. It's what b'shas misas. That's what we learned. Let's go back. Then it's worth nothing. You make the evaluation only b'shas misas. Halacha va. Hoyasham yoyser al kedei haksubas. Guys, halkap. There is a dinner or more. Afa pisheyesh olav shtar chayv keneged. Now, 1 second. The guy also owes money. The guy owes money, that guy is going to collect it. Doesn't matter. Oh, guys, we have to remember halacha Perek Yud Zayin. Now, when he comes to collect, what happens? So there's the kedima, and then there's going to be formulas. We learned how to deal with it later. Okay, halacha Zayin. The guy's married to 2 wives. One of them died, so let's go to Leah. Leah passed away while he was alive. And va'achas achar Moise, and Rachel passed away. Rachel passed away after he previously passed away. And he has children from both. Yosef will be an heir now because Rachel is not alive either. Even though there isn't more this extra dinner, if the second wife, prior to Rachel's passing, had an opportunity to swear the Shvuas Almana, which is, as we keep on learning, has to be made, but Nehar Koidmim Lidosh Ksubasa, Yosef is going to come first. Their inheritance. No, the guy died. There's not enough money. Who comes first over here? So like this, Reuven's getting his mother's ksuba, is a rabbinic Tanai ksuba. Because me'ikar adin, the moment Rachel died, it's lost. When Yaakov dies before Rachel, then the din is Rachel really gets her ksuba and her nedunya. And now that she dies, when Yosef is the heir, it's his midin taita. He's going to collect it first. And only the point is, even if there's no moiser dinner, no, it's after, then they divide it. But you don't need for there to be a moiser dinner. But however, even if Yaakov passes away before Rachel, but if Rachel didn't have an opportunity to make the oath, then Bnei Harishoni Yosh Musubasim Lavad, and the other ones get nothing. Wow. In other words, that's the rule, guys. Without the shvuas almana, she doesn't get it. So if she doesn't get it, she cannot bequeath it to her sons. Now, Yaakov Avinu has sons, so they're Yoidish, but there's no ksubas ben on dichrin. First, Uven takes it, and then if there's anything left, Shavu b'Shav. Halacha ches. Hoysa nashur shtei nashim. Another case, a man is married to 2 wives. V'hoya loy mehen banim, and he has sons from both of them, and then the father dies first, and then ba'achar kach meisu anashim. So here again, we don't need the Moisa dinner. If both of these widows had an opportunity to swear that they never got their ksuba and then they died, guys, so then that's not ksubas ben andichrin. Because don't forget, guys, the ksuba goes to the almana. The nedunya goes to the almana. And now another case, we learned this in Perik Yud Zayin. Because since he was mechuyev to give that first, that was today's Perik Yud Zayin. But there's no moiser din. But if they didn't swear, same, just be consistent. The ain't sham yiroshas ksuban at all. Only if she takes the oath. Halacha test. Achas nishba, achas lo nishba. Let's go back. One of them had the opportunity. Zusha nishba b'neo yorshim ksuvas atchila. Next, another din, whoever will inherit the ksuba of his mother, right? Ksuba's been on dichrin, the case of the beginning of the Perek, the din is eino toidev and nechasam v'shubadim. You cannot collect it from a nechasam v'shubadim, because that was lachatchila the Tanai based, and not for you to take it from the lukochas. Now let's go by it. Halacha yud, a new din, the second din of this Perek. And that's going to be the Tanai of the Ksuba, that daughters who are not Yarshim will live off the estate very similar to the Alman. Umitnai Ksuba shetiyena habanois nizoinois menichse aviyam achar moisoi. But until when? Either until they get engaged, but here at least there is a limit, until when they become a boigeres, which in most cases will be until they're 12 and a half. Bogra habas, even though she's not engaged. Or if she gets engaged, even though she's not a brigeres, then she loses this right of mezonis. Ubas hanizonis menich sevia la'achar moisoi. Unlike the almana that we said that the maise yodeh of the almana, if the yisoimim ask if we're toyanim leyismeketanim, goes to the estate, not by the bonis. Here the bonis have more than the almana. Umaise yodeh umitziyas la'atzma v'loy la'achim. No, it's ein adam moirish zchos b'noi. When the father was alive, Masiyah there goes to the dad. He doesn't give that to the sons. Doesn't go to the sons. Furthermore, it's not just Muzoinus, it's Ksus. It's living, housing. Just everything we learned in Perek goes over with this one difference. That means the standard of living can be very high. In other words, they're not afforded the same standard of living. If the guy passed away, they can give her a much lower standard of living, but it has to be functional. On the other hand, the leniency is that the daughters don't have to swear. A almana has to take an oath. There's nothing for them to take an oath. There must be a document. As we learned in the last Perek, because Shema Machla Iman B'Ksuba. However, as we learned in the last chapter, if you're living in a place where no one writes a Ksuba, you make a kinyan, then Yesh Lahem Kfiyat Tanayim, because it's assumed that it's there. While he's dying, he makes a stipulation. Al tizan al menasai, al yishu bana v'ksuasiman. You can't do that. Ain't shaymin loy. Now, can a guy give away everything he has as a gift? He could. However, nosen kol nechasim l'natan ala chedim. So you have to know the dinam of amat nashchivmina. Amat nashchivmina, unless he says otherwise, you only give it la'achar moisai. La'achar moisai, it's too late. Hoy l'amat nashchivmina inu koine elachar misa. As we'll learn, harei amatona b'chivan nechasim b'tnoim elu boim kiyachot. In other words, one obligation cannot push off the other. And therefore, yes, it was ineffective. The almana and the banais are nizonis min nechasa. Ubanav Yorshim Ksubas Iman Shemesa B'chaye Bailo. Halacha Yudal. Bas Hamima Enes. So she's married in a marriage that she's able to retroactively nullify, and she did that. So then she's like any other daughter that was never married that gets this tanai of getting mezainis until either she gets engaged or until she becomes a begettes. Avo bas hayavama, bas hayavama. You know, if the yavama has a girl, what did we learn? Then the estate doesn't have to support her. Ubas hashniya. Since it's a marriage that's forbidden midrabanan, they did not give this benefit for the daughter. If a man has a daughter from his wife that he did not marry yet, he only engaged, or if a man raped a woman, right? So he's chayiv to marry her. He's not allowed to divorce her. But on that marriage, they didn't make the stipulation. If there was a daughter b'tanaisa. And in all of the above cases, yes, until they're 6, you take it out. After 6, you shame him like any other child. So there is a daughter. She's living off the estate. She gets engaged. Now what? The guy who gave her kiddushin, you understand, he has to give her mezainis. Normally, the chiyuv mezainis only comes with nesuyin. Here, she was being supported. You're engaging her takes away her right, so you have to supplement it. And the ain boy get it. She's not old enough for her to work for herself. However much money a woman then would make, she's still a ktan or a naira. So the defect when you are giving kiddushin to an orphan girl, knowing she's living off the estate of the deceased father, your kiddushin is machayev you the chasen to support her. Halacha tezayin, you say sabas, she gets married, or umayana einis garsha einis alma afilo ihishemeres yavam toil b'chazal beisavia v'dayin like bagras. She continues areizon uzanis when say avia achetik but achetesarei salacha yud zayin bishameis v'niach banam bonois. He leaves sons and daughters. Now we're putting all of these dinim together. So Yirshu Rabbanim Kol Hanan Chasim. First of all, Yerusha goes to the sons, but now prior to them eating from it, they have to fulfill these obligations. They have to support their sisters. That we even at the basin will even allow them to take possession. So think about it. A person passes away. He leaves enough real estate that there's income. The income is good for everyone. So then the sons get that. They take possession of it, and they have to support them until that's called a man dies with Nachasim Merubin. You understand? Well, what happens if a person dies? We know that this guy, he died, and there's not that much money. And he left young daughters, and he left a widow. Based on Lachatchila, won't even let the sons to take over the property. Based in puts an escrow. First, they cover the mezainas for the daughters until they become a begettes. And by the way, and if there's a widow, the Gemara says they estimate how old she is. They estimate how much money they'll need for her. But and then the rest goes to the children. And if there's very little money, then they get nothing, the sons. And let the sons go collect money, because if you have to pick and choose, a man has less shame, the Torah says, and he has to be the one collecting the money. That's if there's real estate. Without Takanas Go'ainim, the Banis won't get anything. So it's this obligation of the Tanai Ksuba goes only on Karka. They're only getting it because now the Go'ainim said you can do it, now they're equal. And not more. And that's the way we pass it. Halacha Yutes. But as time went on, the sons did not manage it properly, and now it's in the Smatu. So you don't say, now let Beis Din take it away from the Yisraelim. Once the Yisraelim had possession, now the Yisraelim will have to support their sisters. But once they took possession, so Beis Din did not even allow for the sons to take it. And now, so the Banan can tell Beis Din, excuse me, we made the state grow, we want to take possession of some of it. If they made that sale, I'm saying it, not So do you deduct the chayv? She had a daughter from another marriage, and he undertook another chayv to support her. That doesn't go into that calculation. If without these obligations there's nechasim merubim, then the sons take possession. Ela yishu abanam hakoil, and the yitn about chayv chayvay. The yezunu bas eshes adiyam achas mancha pasak. The yezunach yisem ashi bogre shor sumitachas yedeyem, and until it's depleted. Halacha chaf aleph hiniach almano bas. A guy has no sons. He passed away, and he has a widow and a daughter. Whether mimeno b'mi isha acheres. And guys, if he has only a daughter, what's the din? That the daughter is that biblical yarshin, but no salafcha. But it's not a son. The ain ben achasim kadesh is. So we say, listen to this: the almana gets the money, and the daughter goes collecting. Shemazoynas habas comes before Yerusha Zemek Suva, even though tonight Suva. The Kalvachem Advarim. Which, as we just said, so if the sons are pushed away by Nechasim Mu'atim, so Loitidacha Yerusha Zaksuba Sheitanai Beis Mepnei Zoynas habas. So therefore the almana comes first. Halacha chav beis, the final halacha. Misha meis v'iniach bon nois kedoilos uketanois, and he left no sons. Ein oimnim. We don't say let all of it go to the banis haktanois achi yibagru, and then the achlatu ashar v'nuchas meshava. Elam. If it's only daughters, there's no widow here, then all of them are divided b'shava, and whenever it runs out, it runs out. Shkoyach, to be continued. Wow, big chapters.
That was right, 520.